I don't know if people know much about the restructure process that we've been going through. I did have a look at the names of the people who signed up for this evening's webinar. There were some very familiar names, some people who have been very involved in preparing this new structure for PACFA, some other names that weren't known to me. So I'm going to start by assuming people don't know that much. So please bear with me if it's information that you've heard before. Just bear with us because there'll be some people that are quite new to this. What I've noticed up until now is that when we ask for feedback from member associations and their members, quite often we don't get a lot of feedback. So we're not quite sure what that's about, but with some people, they just don't know much about it, about the whole restructure process. So I'll start from the beginning, and I think the first important question to ask is, why are we doing this? Why are we structuring PACFA? Well, PACFA has been working on this initiative for about 2 years now, and it originally came about because I think the board was sitting around one weekend at a board meeting, and we were just discussing the challenges and struggles of running a small organisation like PACFA and finding enough resources to do that effectively. There were also concerns about the effectiveness of some MAs. Our member associations, some of them were doing really well, but some were really struggling. And they were saying that they didn't have enough volunteers to keep running. Some were even saying they didn't know how they could keep running and they were facing closure. So these were really serious issues for PACFA, because without our member associations, PACFA actually doesn't exist. We're a federation, which means we are made up of other organisations, and if they don't survive, then we don't survive. So it was very important for us to start to think about how we could perhaps do things differently. We realised that there was a lot of duplication going on. At that time, I think there might have been about 29 member associations. We've lost a few since then. I think we're down to 27. But running 29 different organisations, or 30 including PACFA, meant that there were 30 different management committees. All of those committees needed volunteers to run, 30 lots of membership management, 30 lots of accounts and finances and so on. So it's actually not a very efficient way to operate an organisation. Also, I think more and more it seems like practitioners are expecting PACFA to really start achieving something, and PACFA does have a very ambitious strategic plan, but without much more significant resources, and that means, the resources to employ more staff, it's really hard to get some significant wins on the board. If you want to lobby government or campaign with private health funds, these are really big things to take on, and they're not campaigns that are won up overnight. They probably have to happen over a couple of years, and we have to consistently be working on them, and that all takes resources. So that's by way of background as to why we started up this whole restructure in the first place. I think if we project forward to the future and we could perhaps imagine what PACFA might look like a few years down the track, or even 15 years down the track, our vision is that PACFA will be stronger and better resourced as a peak body for the psychotherapy and counselling profession, that we would be able to effectively promote who we are and what we do to government, private health funds and other bodies, that they would understand who we are and that they would want to recognise us and work with us. Also, I think going along with that awareness raising with government is a great need to raise awareness in the community as well, because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding in the community about counselling and psychotherapy. Sometimes people assume that only psychologists do counselling and psychotherapy, and of course that's not correct, as we know. So I think the profession does have high professional standards, but that is something very important for us to maintain. And also, it's important that members can access good quality but affordable professional development and networking. I suppose, importantly, we want to secure PACFA's sustainability for the long term, and that means managing our money well, operating efficiently and operating in a business-like manner. Now, I seem to have lost my little box where I can see the questions. Can I just pop over to Di? Are there any burning questions so far that you can see in the question box?
Maria, I can see the slides, but I can't see any questions in the question box.
Okay, that's fine. People can feel free to type questions or comments as we go. And Di, perhaps you could let me go. When I started running the PowerPoint, I lost the question box.
Okay.
You can still see the question box.
No, I can't see the question box.
Can't see the question box either.
No.
Okay. Just hang on. Just bring it up on my screen. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions at this stage. It's actually a bit hard to read the questions because my view screen is very small. Okay, so let's just carry on. I'm just going to go back to where we were. That's our vision. There's quite a long way to go to get to that vision. But I think that's why this restructure is very important at this time. It kind of seemed like it was a crucial moment that if the PACFA board and the PACFA council, who's working very closely with us, wasn't able to start working towards something new, that it might almost be too late, that some of our struggling MAs might not survive. So we have been working very hard for 2 years, and we're not quite there yet. There's still a little bit more work to do to get ready for the restructure. But it's crucial that we do this because otherwise this future vision that we have may not be realised. So I'm going to go through now the main elements of the proposed restructure. I can now see the question box, which is good. Though, as I said, it's quite difficult to read. So if you have a question, do just type it in the question box.
Or in fact, if anybody's got a comment, that'd be good too.
Okay. We might have to hold the comments to the end or I might not get through the PowerPoint. Okay. Oh yes, you can type a comment, but if you want to put your hand up and actually speak, we'll save that to the end. So,
yep.
When we started thinking about how a different structure might work, you know, what it might look like, a different structure for PACFA, one of the things that became clear quite early on was that some member associations of PACFA didn't want to keep running as separate organisations, that they just wanted to be PACFA, part of PACFA structurally. And what that would mean is that their members would be our members. So what that means is in the new structure, we would need to have an individual PACFA membership option. So we would still offer organisational membership for member associations, that is other professional associations for psychotherapy and counselling, but we would also open PACFA up for individuals to join directly. Now, one of the real advantages of that is with our register, those who want to join PACFA directly as individuals will go on to the register automatically, and at the moment it's quite a clunky system. It's a two-step process to come into PACFA. First you have to join one of our member associations. Then when you're eligible you can apply to go on the register, and every year you have to do the renewal documentation twice. So that system will actually continue for those members who want to still belong to one of our member associations. But for the people who want to belong to PACFA as individuals, it will just become much more simple from an administrative point of view because you'll just have one membership and it'll be a membership with PACFA. Now, to make sure that the new individual members are looked after and that their particular needs are met by the peak body, we would be looking to establish 3 new types of divisions of PACFA, if you like. One of them would be called branches, and the branches would be a geographic grouping of different practitioners. So it may be that in your state, whether it be Victoria or Western Australia or Queensland or whatever, New South Wales, you would have a branch for that state. Going forward, it may be that some states with large numbers of members might find the need at a future time to have more than one branch in their state. So it might be that you have, I don't know, Northern Queensland and Southern Queensland, or Western Sydney and Northern Sydney, or something like that. So initially we'd be looking to have one branch per state, but there's the potential for more branches to develop over time. And the branches are just a way for people to come together, to access, quality professional development on a local level, and to have opportunities to come together with other practitioners, to meet other like-minded people and to network. So that's the idea of branches. That's the very short, brief version. The next proposed division of PACFA would be colleges. And colleges would come together more on the basis of a shared interest, such as a therapy modality, or perhaps an approach to practice, or a client group that you work with. These are the different types of colleges that could potentially develop within PACFA. At this stage, we have had interest expressed by a couple of member associations who want to become colleges. So one of those would be the College of Psychotherapy. So there's a lot of interest in that different psychotherapy groups might become part of that college, and within that college you might have modality specialisations as well. We also have interest in a College of Relationship Counselling. From one of our member associations is interested in forming that kind of college. And there's also interest in forming a College of Counselling and Psychotherapy Educators. So far, they're the different kinds of colleges that we've been asked to form. But over time, new colleges could form for new modalities if those individual members want to form a college, or if other member associations want to become part of PACFA structurally in the future, they could form a college around their particular modality. The last one, interest groups, is a much more informal one because currently we don't have anything like interest groups. The idea here is that we want to provide a mechanism for practitioners to come together in a very formal way to start working together around areas of interest. So again, this might be a modality, a very niche modality perhaps in the field, or it might be client groups that people work with, such as alcohol and other drugs, or working with children. There might be groups interested in forming around, particular social issues where practitioners want to get involved. So we don't have any of these at the moment, as I said. So the idea of interest groups is that they would be very informal. It would be quite easy to set one up, whereas there's a bit more involved, obviously, setting up a branch or a college. Branches and colleges, the idea is that they would actually have a budget to run all their activities, whereas interest groups just run very informally, so there wouldn't be a budget allocation. We could perhaps make some simple resources available, such as this webinar software or a web conferencing. We can distribute emails for interest groups. Whereas with branches and colleges, we'd be really resourcing them with staff and budgets to help them run to support their members. So they're the broad elements of the structure. Importantly, some member associations, as I've already said, may elect to become part of PACFA structurally. Their members become individual members of PACFA, and then they would also belong to branches and colleges if they have a specialisation. Some member associations can elect to continue just as they are, and nothing would change for them. A number of member associations have said that at this stage that's what they would prefer to do. They would rather continue as they are as separate legal entities. in continuing as they are, the arrangements for the PACFA register would be exactly the same as well. So I think mostly this will be practitioners who have trained in a particular specialist modality. They might prefer to belong to their member association rather than PACFA, but if they want to go on the register, they can still apply in the two-step way to go on the register just as they do now. With the governance arrangements, I suppose the very important thing that we started out as a starting point for the governance arrangements is that we wanted to ensure that there were opportunities for everyone to be represented and that would be fair, that individual members would have a voice, the new PACFA divisions would have a voice, and those MAs that are continuing as MAs would still have a voice as well, and that it would be fair that they would equally have an opportunity to be part of the organisation and to have a say. So going on a bit further, Di, have we got any burning questions?
Well, I'm just wondering, and maybe just a slight pause.
Yes.
Are there any questions coming through in terms of what you've described already? I can't see questions, but you might be able to see some.
Well, I can see, my problem is, and I don't know why it's doing this, but my question box is really narrow, so I can't read it. I don't know if other people are having the same problem. But Lisa,
and is anyone popping their hand up at all? Or?
Lisa Menzel has said, the question box automatically disappears, hides on my screen, but it can be retrieved.
Okay.
And then Heather has said,
Thank
the
you
question
everyone for
box
hanging
may
in
be
there.
outside the PowerPoint screen. I think that's it. I lost my question box when I started running the question. I got it back. The question box closes if it has not been used for some time. Most of us will see a red arrow. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what we're doing wrong. Quite a few people have made suggestions about how to see the questions.
Right, okay.
And I've got a question here, but I can't read it. Oh, there it is. You've got to click on it. Okay. So I've got a question from someone who's asking, why did, for example, did ANZSA decide not to retain PACFA membership? Well, ANZSA, for those that don't know, is the Australia-New Zealand Society for Jungian Analysts. We lost a few of our analytical groups a couple of years back, and ANZSA was the second last one still in PACFA. With ANZSA, I think they felt that as psychoanalysts, that for them the fit with PACFA wasn't as good. I think that's quite disappointing because I think there's an opportunity for psychoanalysts to have a stronger, more prominent position within PACFA by developing a college of psychoanalysis. That was an option that was on the table. I certainly encouraged ANZSA to hang in there for the restructure to happen before making a decision about leaving, but they decided last year to leave. Also, the psychoanalytic groups have actually started up their own peak body, which I suppose they hope will better represent their unique interests. Okay. I've got another question from Ray Andrews. Does the one PACFA give similar status with the BOTRH as it is now? I don't understand your question. Sorry, we might have to come back to that, Ray. Both. Does the one PACFA give similar status as with the both as it is now? I'm still not sure I understand the question. You might need to write that again. Can we join more than one college? Yes, you can join more than one college. The idea with the colleges is that if you are eligible to join one of the colleges, and not everyone will be, you might have to either have additional training, or you might have to be an educator to join the College of Counselling and Psychotherapy Educators. But some of the colleges would also be offering affiliate membership. So even if you don't meet their particular training standards for that college, you might be able to join as an affiliate. So if you're perhaps not fully trained in a particular modality, but you're really interested and you want to be part of that network, then you could join. One college membership would be included with your membership of PACFA. If you want to join 2 colleges, there would be a fee for the second college membership, and I'll come a bit later to what the fees would be. Can I belong to more than one category? I'm not sure what you mean by category. Yes, you can belong to a branch and a college and an interest group. Interest group membership would be free. Your branch membership, and as I've said, your first college membership is included. Okay, so there are more questions coming through now that I've figured out how to read them. Keep typing your questions, but I'm going to go back to the presentation now. Is that okay, Di? Di, did you want to make any?
I'm thinking that sounds good. I'm just picking up on. I'm feeling the need to make a comment about the counselling and psychotherapy streams.
Yes.
Our objective is to not fragment and to honour and respect both of those themes, work together and maintain the robustness of each. I just think that's important to kind of note that that's where we're coming from.
That's great. Thanks for that, Di. I'll say something a bit more about that. There's another slide coming I can add to that, I think. So I'm just going to say a bit more about the proposed governance structure for PACFA. Currently, because we're a federation, we have the PACFA Council, and each member association has representation on that PACFA Council. So that's how they have a voice within PACFA. As we move to individual membership, we had to think about how individual members would have a voice. So the proposal is that we would have a new body which would be called the PACFA Member Congress. This would be the peak governing body for PACFA. And all individual members who meet PACFA's training standards would be able to have a vote on this peak governing body. But it's not just the individual members of PACFA, because it was felt that that might be a bit unfair on those practitioners who decide to stay members of a member association rather than joining PACFA directly. So the suggestion was then made that anyone who meets the PACFA's training standard, and let me just remind you, the PACFA training standard is someone who's done the appropriate counselling or psychotherapy training program, but also you've completed at least 200 client hours linked to 50 hours of supervision. So that's actually equivalent to what we call PACFA provisional registration. And those people who are qualified and experienced to that level, the member associations actually pay a per capita fee to PACFA on behalf of all those qualified people. So that's how those individuals currently contribute to PACFA's revenue. It's via their MA. So we thought it was fair that those individuals, as well as the individual members of PACFA who meet the PACFA training standards as well, that they would all get a vote on this new body called the PACFA Member Congress. That was a really key deliverable from the very beginning, that no member association should be disadvantaged if they chose to continue as they are as legally separate organisations, because that's always been part of PACFA, and you know, quite a number of member associations want to continue in that way. It's hard to know what it might look like 15 years in the future. It may be that more of those member associations want to be part of PACFA structurally in the future. There may come a point at which they don't want to run their own association anymore and they just want to come in with PACFA. But that choice is completely up to the member association. So back to the member congress. One thing that's still under discussion is who should elect the PACFA board. There was a proposal early on that these individual members of the member congress should get to elect the board. More recently, there's been some question marks about that, that kind of presidential style of governance is not really very Australian, and that maybe for us it might be better that the board is still elected by the council. And the council would continue, that would still be made up of member associations but also colleges and branches. So that's the other option that's still being discussed, and I'd be really happy at the end to have some comments on that one because that one is still under discussion. The Member Congress would also be responsible for voting at the annual general meeting, which takes place in October every year, and also any special general meetings should we ever need one to make important decisions. This Congress would also approve any constitutional changes, and it would also be a forum to keep individuals informed, to consult with you on key issues relating to PACFA strategy. The idea here is that this Member Congress would meet annually, and it would be at that time of the AGM in October, but that it could be in rotating locations around the country. There's no reason why we have to stick to Melbourne and Sydney. Currently we stick to Melbourne and Sydney just because of the cost savings. That's where most people happen to be. But I think what we'd like to do is have some form of electronic participation in AGMs, and that, you know, if we went to Perth or Adelaide or Brisbane or even Hobart for our AGM, those people living in those places would get a chance to attend in person, and everybody else around the country would be able to participate electronically. So that's the suggestion there.
And it does offer some exciting possibilities, a little different to what we're used to.
Yes, and there is some software. I mean, you could use webinar software such as this for an AGM, but there's other types of software you can use as well for online voting for things like elections. Okay. Are there burning questions, or shall I carry on, Di?
Well, are there burning questions? I can't see them.
Oh, you can't see the questions. Okay,
no.
Let's have a look. What might happen? I'll come to that question a bit later. Okay, so let's just get this right. Someone, Lindy Burt has asked, just clarifying, can an individual elect to become a member independent of MAs, or must they be a member of an MA who elects to follow the individual? An individual who currently belongs to an MA, if their MA decides to stay as a separate MA, that individual can choose where they want to belong. They can belong to both if they want. They can join PACFA and they can stay a member of their member association, or they can choose one or the other. But there's no requirement to continue to belong to a member association in order to become an individual member. Some people will transfer over. So if the member association is going to wind up and come into PACFA, their members will transfer over to PACFA, and they'll transfer into the relevant branch and into the college if they're eligible for college membership. I hope that answers that one.
So as a specific example, it might be that PCA TAS determines to join PACFA and break up from its traditional MA role, and the individual members will automatically come under the PACFA umbrella, and those people will become the Tasmanian branch. Might not be called the Tasmanian branch, but effectively the PCA TAS will morph into a branch.
That's right. And the Australian Association of Relationship Counsellors, which is interested in becoming college, they would morph into the new college, whatever that is going to be called. It would be up to them what they want to call it. I've got another question here. What is the purpose of calling a division colleges? Is there any division for training organisations? No, I want to be very clear that training organisations should run as a separate entity. as a professional association for psychotherapy and counselling as a profession, PACFA's role is not to run training. So any member associations that run training should continue to run that in a separate legal entity, which is a training organisation. I suppose the reason for calling it a college, it might be a little bit confusing, but we did have some discussions very early on with the PACFA Council about this. The term college is quite often used by peak bodies and professional associations to describe groupings of practitioners. So, for example, you have the Royal Australian College of GPs. So it's not a college where you go to do training. It's more the other definition of college, which is a place where people come together in a collegial way to share their learning and experience. So I hope that's clear. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is the next element of the governance structure, and it's the PACFA Council. Now, we already have a PACFA Council, and the PACFA Council currently is the peak governance body for PACFA. So it fulfills all those governance functions that we're suggesting would be moved over to the new member Congress. But the PACFA Council also operates as a peak strategy and policy making body for PACFA. So it's not that I, as the CEO or even the board, just go off on our own and invent policy on really key policy and strategy issues for PACFA. That's done by consensus within the PACFA Council. That's always been the culture of PACFA, and we're very keen to maintain that culture. So the proposal is that the PACFA Council would become the peak strategy and policy making body for PACFA, and just as now all member associations have equal representation, the proposal is that member associations who continue to be member associations, colleges and branches, and the PACFA board would all be represented. So we wouldn't be losing the diversity, which is currently one of the real strengths of our councils, that we have many voices. PACFA is not just there to represent one perspective or one type of practitioner. We're very diverse, and it really is a strength of PACFA. It was thought that Council should determine whether interest groups and affiliated organisations can participate as non-voting observers. Interest groups, because they're very informal groupings, they might be interested to be present at these PACFA Council meetings to find out about PACFA, to contribute their ideas. But it's been suggested that they wouldn't have a vote. Also, there's another category of membership being proposed for affiliated organisations who would also not have a vote. So this would be a lower form of membership than being a full member association. It would be just organisations that want to be part of our family. They want to be affiliated or associated with us without being a full member association. So that also would be a non-voting position. It would be for Council to determine whether they can be present as observers at Council meetings. So the proposal is that Council's role would be to set the PACFA strategic plan, obviously that's done in conjunction with the board, to determine PACFA policy on key strategic issues, and to inform and consult the member Congress as required. So I think the idea is that if the PACFA Council was working with the board or various PACFA committees on developing policy initiatives or strategy initiatives, that we would want to talk to the individual members as well. So any initiatives could be fed from the Council into the annual general meeting, so that would be an opportunity to consult individual members. We could also consult individual members in the Congress by electronic means as well. We don't have to just wait and consult them once a year. It's proposed that this council would continue to meet twice a year in Sydney and Melbourne, simply because that's the most cost-effective way for us to meet. So this is the proposed structure of our board. It would be a bigger board. And we have to think carefully about whether we really do want to have a bigger board, because it's always harder to manage when you have a bigger board, but there's also more costs involved in that. But this is actually the board that we came up with. And when I say we, I'm not talking about just myself or Di or the board. We do have a whole working party representing 14 member associations working on all of this detail with us. So it was felt in the working party and in the board that we wanted to keep the first 7 positions would be the same as current board positions. Currently, we also have we have 2 positions actually for MA representatives. So they represent all MAs, not just particular MAs. So in this new board, it's proposed that we'd have 1 member associations representative. So that's representing all of the member associations. But that we would also have 1 person representing counselling and 1 person representing psychotherapy. This was considered important because some psychotherapy groups have felt that they have not been prominent enough in PACFA, and that they want to be distinguished as having psychotherapy training. They want to be distinguished from counsellors, which we understand completely where they're coming from, and that's why we were happy to go with the suggestion that came from some of the psychotherapists that they should have their own representation on the board. At the recent council meeting in April, there was a suggestion that we should actually have a consumer and carer representative on the board, as well as an expert member. So the expert member would allow us to bring in special expertise as and when needed. So
expertise such as marketing or lobbying.
Yes.
And also, in addition to that restructure, the board, it might be that all of those positions, as in the newer ones, don't get filled immediately. That there'll be a transition in terms of recruiting more people onto the board.
And building up the resources to obviously bear those extra costs. So I'm not going to dwell on the diagram. The diagram was the best way we could come up to give you a visual representation of that structure I've just described in a lot of words. Where you see a black line, that is a right to be represented. That's the line of governance, or the governance responsibilities. You'll see interest groups and affiliated organisations to one side are not connected by the black line. That's because it's suggested that they would be non-voting bodies. Okay, so that's the diagram. Here are the proposed membership categories. We wanted to keep this simple. So you've got full, intern, student, affiliate and life. Full means people who meet the PACFA training standards. Intern, you're still building up your hours. Student, self-evident what that is. Affiliate, this is a non-practicing membership category, and this is very important. Some of the member associations that are going to be keen to join PACFA structurally, they already have affiliate members. So these are people that perhaps aren't fully qualified, but they want to belong just because they're interested in what we're doing. But PACFA is very clear from the outside that any PACFA affiliate is a non-practicing member. Okay, and then the organisational members that I've already mentioned, obviously member associations would continue, and affiliated organisation as a non-voting organisational category. Okay.
Marie, can I just interrupt for a moment and highlight that it's 7:45, so we've been going for 45 minutes,
okay,
and we've just got half an hour left.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, in terms of managing the time, and also if any questions popped up that we might answer.
Okay.
Just
right.
now.
Well, I'm going to whiz through very quickly. You can see there on the screen, these are some of the proposed membership benefits for individuals. I've already gone over a lot of this, the idea that your college and branch membership is included, that we would be putting on, well, the colleges and the branches would be putting on professional development, some of which would be subsidised or free, because that's what the current practice is, and we think that's a great way to encourage people to participate. We also are interested in offering a group insurance policy. So rather than you all having to go off and arrange your own insurance, if you want to take up the pack for insurance, which we would negotiate with a broker, that would just be a tick the box and you're insured. So there's no extra admin for you to organise that for yourself, but it would be optional. Okay? Here are the registration categories. These would be the same as they are now. We have clinical, provisional and intern registration categories. We also have additional accreditations, mental health practitioners and accredited supervisor. It's proposed that none of that would change, but the opportunity we have with the new colleges being created is that people could have additional accreditation. So if they've jumped through extra hoops to do extra training to belong to a particular specialist college, then they could potentially have that as an additional accreditation. So they would be an accredited psychotherapist or an accredited relationship counsellor, etc. Okay?
That's a very positive additional
Okay.
level at the
So with the finance, I'm going to whiz through this because I suppose our key goal with financing the structure is that membership fees should be reasonable and affordable, and that branches and colleges will receive a budget based on what they're planning to do, because we think that's the fairest way to fund colleges and branches. And the financial modelling that we've done is based on the membership numbers we've got so far from MAs who want to become part of Pact for Structure League, which is 8 altogether. So here are the numbers. I'm not going to dwell on them except to say that there will be new revenue coming in, but there will be a lot of new expenditure going out, particularly in relation to additional staffing and additional office running costs. So what we have now is a lot of member associations running largely on volunteer labour. That work is now going to be done by staff because the volunteers, quite frankly, are not there to continue doing all of that work on a voluntary basis. So that's why we have basically the bulk of the additional revenue from the new structure actually going into staffing. So we'll see Pact for Staffing grow significantly. There's no significant surpluses at the outset. That is because we've tried to keep the membership fees as low as possible. And also, these projected costings are very conservative. So what will actually happen is that once the new structure, is a possibility, we then have the opportunity to start to build our membership numbers, to grow membership. The new structure would facilitate that. So whereas initially the projected surpluses are very low, it's not enough money to do anything really big in terms of campaigning. The idea is that going forward, the new structure would enable us to build our membership numbers much higher. A lot of people at the moment, there are people out there practicing that don't belong to any professional association. So we want to try and capture these people. Okay, so that's how the costings were done. It was actually a very involved, very in-depth process to work out those costings. So it has been done in a very robust manner. And I think this is the key thing that people want to say, what's it going to cost? Now, if you're moving across to PACFA from a small member association, a membership fee of $350 including GST might actually be a price increase for you. I'm sorry about that, but basically what we're doing is we're running a national member association. We're no longer running on a voluntary basis for those members because you can't when you get that, that many members. For some member associations, this actually would represent a drop in the fee. So, when the members associations become part of PACFA and when those members come over, they might actually be paying less. We've tried to arrive at a fair compromise. Now, obviously, the interns, because they're still starting out, they get a lower fee, so do students. And the affiliates, which is a non-practicing membership category. First college is free. If you are a member association member rather than a PACFA member, you can belong to a first college as well, but you would need to pay for that because you would not be an individual PACFA member. And then the second college, there's also a fee for that, and those fees are $80. We've also got the fees there for affiliated organisations. So that's the fees. These are the next step. Obviously, we need to get legal advice. And I've been talking about this restructure as if it's going to happen. That's because there's very strong interest within the PACFA Council and the member associations to move forward. It's been acknowledged that there is a need to restructure, but the decision has to be formally made at the AGM. So in a sense, nothing's definite until the PACFA AGM votes on these proposals and makes a decision to go forward. I think between now and then, the work that still has to be done is more about the detail, what you've seen tonight, and there is already a longer PowerPoint on the PACFA website, but there will be an updated longer PowerPoint coming out soon. Those details are still being refined, but what you're seeing at this point in time is pretty close to the formal proposal that will go to the AGM in October. So obviously from there we'll move into implementation.
And in terms of that detail, for example, the Working Party is continuing to work together with a teleconference in May, and there's going to be a joint board and Working Party meeting in June, and we've just got a lot of things in place to maintain contact with MAs and members accordingly to check and balance and consult and just keep the conversation going, because the detail is the critical aspect. The bones of what we've got are exciting and full of possibility. It's just actually playing it out that we need to firm up.
Okay, let's move to some more questions now. I've got a question here. Why are some MAs choosing to remain under the current arrangements? Well, usually it's because perhaps they're a specialist modality and they have concerns about getting lost within the bigger PACFA structure, somehow that they would lose their identity and their uniqueness. A couple of MAs are just wanting to wait and see how it all goes before they make a decision. Quite a few MAs are in that boat. Some actually, it's not even possible for them to come into the new structure. So some have New Zealand members, some have a lot of members who are doctors or psychologists, so they don't think that those members would have any reason to be PACFA members. So there's some that have very definite reasons to stay separate, and they may in fact stay separate forever. Sometimes they're part of international organisations. But sometimes it's just a matter of them being a little bit cautious and wanting to wait and see how the new structure pans out. Here's another question. In the future, with an individual PACFA membership, does this mean you are no longer need to belong to an MA? No, you don't have to you don't have to belong to an MA if you don't want to. But as I said, some of the more specialist modalities, it's likely that the individual practitioner would want to stay with that specialist modality. So, for example, if you're a Gestalt therapist, and at the moment GANS is wanting to stay separate, if you're a Gestalt therapist, you'd probably rather belong to GANS than to PACFA because you want to hang out with all your Gestalt buddies. And if you're, in some other niche modalities, you probably prefer to stay with your member association. But that's going to be up to the individual to decide what they do. They can certainly belong to both if they can afford to do that. I will listen to more. Okay, someone will.
Has someone got their hand up, Maria?
Let's have a look. Oh, I can't see the hands up. Oh, hang on, I've got to look at the attendees. Rose Ralston. Did you want to speak, Rose? I've given the microphone to Rose Ralston.
Good. Hello, Rose.
Hello. No, I just wanted to let you know that my little question was up there in the beginning to let you know that I was hearing you well. That was all.
Oh, thank you,
Thanks, Rose.
Any more questions?
Ray Turner has her hand up. I'm giving you the microphone, Ray. Hello, Ray.
Hello, Maria. I didn't actually have my hand up. Can you hear me now?
You did have your hand up, but that doesn't matter. That's fine. Let's try another person. Renee McDonald, would you like to make a comment, Renee? Hello, Renee.
Yes. Can you...
Oh, doggy in the background.
There's not a dog at my place.
That's my dog.
Okay. So my question is, in regards to the restructure for all of PACFA or the other member associations, in regards to the landscape of mental health at the moment, I guess as a practitioner, I'm finding it's confusing out there for clients, and I'm constantly having to explain myself.
Right. Well, thanks for that question, Renee. We actually discussed this at the recent council meeting. We were doing some strategic planning, and we had that feedback from a lot of people that people think we need to just be promoting understanding both in the community and government about what are psychotherapy and counselling, because there's a lot of misunderstanding out there, and a lot of people conflating the different professions and not understanding what's unique about us. So, we could do a massive community education campaign around that if we had the resources. So I think there's strong agreement with what you're saying, Renee, that work does need to be done on promoting our unique identities. Peter Harris, you've got your hand up. Would you like to make a comment? Hello, Peter.
Sorry, that was left up accidentally. Sorry.
Okay, Peter.
Let's look at some of the questions. Okay. An idea for an interest group is counselling for the experience of ageing. Well, that's a great suggestion. Thanks for that. And in a way, anything I think is possible. If you got together with a couple of other practitioners who wanted to start up that kind of interest group, we're proposing that the process would be quite simple, that the PACFA board, you just say who you are and what you want to start up and what you're planning to do. And if it's all reasonable, then the PACFA board would be able to approve that. And you can just start things up, and we'd be happy to send communications to invite people to get involved. But we just want to put a process in place to facilitate this kind of thing happening, because if people are out there with special interests that they're passionate about, if we can make it easier for you to pursue those in collaboration with others, then that's a really easy way for PACFA to support practitioners. Someone saying a comment, really glad to hear about direct individual membership with PACFA. Interested to hear about the timeline. Well, I think I've said the timeline, but I could say a little bit more about the timeline. We're aiming to vote, as I said, at the PACFA Council AGM in October. So that'll be mid-October. Some member associations are keen to transfer their members over to PACFA as quickly as possible. And, all going well, it could happen as early as January next year. So not only could people transfer over from member associations, but PACFA would be open for business to receive applications from new people who want to join PACFA. But obviously I've got to do a lot of work with the PACFA operations manager and the PACFA board to actually operationalise the new structure. if and when it's approved in October, but we would be aiming to get up and running as quickly as possible.
And it just might be that it's more realistic, given that we go ahead in October, for people to join up from maybe 1st of July to fit into financial year. But people can start moving, and we'll be circulating information on transition to help people along the way with that once the October decision's been made in the affirmative, if that's how it plays out.
Yes, and we shouldn't assume that, because it is Council's decision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We need 70% of people to agree to it.
70% of delegates at Council, that's right.
Yes.
And I suppose keep in mind, PACFA's been working on this for 2 years now, and we've been having regular communications and discussions with the PACFA Council, and the working group that's been working all the details out for the new structure is actually made up of 14 member associations, which is more than half of the PACFA Council. So really the bulk of the PACFA Council has been involved in developing the actual new structure.
And sometimes the reality of people being busy with their own practices and just busy with life, it sometimes isn't until it gets close to the time that you have to decide one way or the other that people start to actually engage a little bit more and just find the time to become a bit more familiar with what's being proposed. And I think that's happening more and more. The more times we have a conversation with groups of people, the more questions, the more comments, and the more we're able to refine it. A couple of years ago, it seemed like a very long time away, October 2015.
We have come a long way, haven't we? Okay, I've got another question. Someone's asking, why can't we have dual memberships with the AASW or the APS? And why should AASW or APS members also be members of PACFA? Now, it's not going to be possible to have dual memberships with those other organisations, because they're completely separate professions with different training routes and different membership requirements. So I don't see that happening. I think there's no requirement for people to belong to more than one association. So if you're a social worker, it's up to you where you belong. So if you've done the additional training in counselling or psychotherapy and you meet the PACFA membership requirements, you can just choose to belong to PACFA if that's how you identify. If you identify professionally as a psychotherapist or a counsellor, then PACFA might be the best fit for you in terms of your membership, or you could belong to both if you wish. Some people, however, although they've trained as psychotherapists or counsellors or practicing in that field, they might identify professionally as a social worker or as a psychologist, and that's why they might choose to belong to those other associations. So it's really up to the individual where they belong. I hope that makes sense. I've elected to take a leave of absence from CAPAV and PACFA due to maternity leave. Will I still be able to vote? We haven't thought about that, but off the top of my head, I would have thought no, because while you're on maternity leave, you're not actually a member of PACFA. You haven't paid your membership dues. So I would have thought no, you wouldn't have a vote. The reason why we have the whole idea of leave of absence is so that you can go back on the PACFA register, or under the new structure you could go back to being a PACFA member without having to have done supervision and CPD in the 12 months prior. So that's the point of the leave of absence. It's not that you're still a member, but you're on leave. It's actually it's a year's leave from being a member, but it's easy to come back. So you don't have to start again from scratch and reapply or do more PD or supervision to rejoin when you've been on leave. I hope that makes sense. So what is the strategy for making sure that individual MA members have met the PACFA training standards? Well, staff assess people's qualifications, practice and supervision hours. We already do that now when someone comes onto the PACFA register. When someone joins as an individual member, we would assess them in exactly the same way. In fact, it's quite likely it'll be exactly the same application form. When they transfer over, if some people transferring over from an MA to PACFA aren't currently on the register, we haven't worked out how that will work, but from my point of view as the CEO who's charged with ensuring the integrity of our register, I would expect that some sort of assessment would need to happen if someone's never been on the register and they're coming over, and registration will be automatic. It's not something optional for individual members. If you meet the training standards, you'll just be on the register. It'll be an automatic thing. But we will need to go through some assessment process for those people because, you know, the integrity and the robustness of the register is really important because otherwise we can't go to government and say these people are all qualified if we haven't assessed their qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
Am I okay to stay with CAPA and also PACFA as I now do, or what is the best recommendation? Well, CAPA New South Wales are planning to become part of PACFA structurally. So, you know, if and when the restructure goes ahead and CAPA comes across, the idea is that CAPA would in due course wind up as an association, so they would no longer be offering a membership of CAPA. They would be transferring their memberships over to PACFA.
Yes.
Will your PowerPoint be available later? Yes, it will. It'll be on the website tomorrow.
Yes. It's important to note that this is a very streamlined kind of shorter PowerPoint than the one we presented at Council on the weekend before last. And in fact, Maria, perhaps we could put both of them up on the website.
Yeah, the other one is already on the website. The other one, the other one that's on the website was an old version dated in January. I think we just need to make some amendments before we put the long version up, but hopefully that won't take too long. So we can get the long version up.
We can aim for that. Yeah, let's aim for that.
Okay, so someone's asking a question about branches. What is the benefit to a person who joins PACFA directly but there is no branch in his/her region as a consequence of the restructure? Well, that's a good question because at the moment both QCA in Queensland and CASA in South Australia want to wait and see. Initially they're planning to stay as separate member associations. All of the other states and territories have indicated an interest in coming into the new structure. The only territory that's not covered is Northern Territory because we don't currently have a member association in the Northern Territory. Now, the Working Party and the Council have discussed this issue and it was felt that we need each branch to have some sort of a leadership group or committee, whatever they're going to be called, in order to help run the branch. Now, that branch would be well resourced from the PACFA office, so there would be admin assistants to take PD bookings or produce PD flyers or whatever admin assistance is needed. But we would still be keen for the leadership group in the branch to decide what it is that they want to do for the members of their branch, whether it be PD or networking. So I think what's tricky is, you know, initially if there's no South Australian or Queensland branch, but we have some people deciding to join from those states, then there won't be people coming across from the old MA to form the leadership branch in the new branch. Sorry, to form the leadership group in the new branch. But if we had enough people in a particular state and those people wanted to put their hand up to be on the leadership group, then there's no reason why we couldn't start up a branch in South Australia or Queensland. And we would be very keen to do that, actually. It might take some time for the different branches to get going, even in states like Victoria or New South Wales, where the MA members are going to come over. That former management committee needs to decide whether they want to be the leadership group of the new branch, or does someone else want to put their hand up to do that? So it might take a little while for the new branches to find their feet, but we did talk about what sort of support the PACFA board and the PACFA office could give those branches to get going at the beginning. I mean, we obviously want to support the branches to see them succeed. So we will be very keen to provide those branches with whatever support that we can.
Mm. So the flip side of that is if there are MAs, for example, I'm using PCA TAS because I'm very familiar with my own branch. It might be that the executive committee of PCA TAS becomes the leadership group for the branch in the initial phase and helps it transition.
That's right, and some management committees coming across are keen to do that, but some might not be keen to do that, and they might need a bit more support. Okay, someone's made a comment, a strong comment. If interest groups and affiliated organisations don't choose to take the responsibility of being either a college or a branch, then they shouldn't get a vote! Exclamation mark. No whinger groups, please. Okay, thanks for the comment.
Thank you. Thank you.
I cannot see the PowerPoint. Can you send it to me? Well, that's very strange. I don't know why you couldn't see the PowerPoint, but yes, it'll be on the website tomorrow. No, someone else couldn't see the slides. I'm really sorry, those of you who couldn't see the slides. Don't know why.
Thank you very much for hanging in with the conversation. It doesn't seem like too many people have dropped out, so we've had a robust group listening in.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we're nearly at the end of our time. I've just got a few more questions here. Someone is saying, peak governing body is weighted in favour of physical attendance in Sydney or Melbourne. That's not actually correct. The peak governing body under this proposal would actually be the member congress. So that's the individual members, and they would be able to vote electronically. And that was the one where we said it could rotate around the whole country. The one that's biased towards Sydney and Melbourne is the what is currently the PACFA Council and what would continue to be called the PACFA Council. This would be made up of representatives of member associations, branches and colleges. As most of the member associations, branches and colleges are located in Sydney and Melbourne, it's entirely a cost-saving thing. We'd be happy to go elsewhere if we had the money to fly the staff and the board to Brisbane. But it's just that one with the PACFA Council being in Sydney or Melbourne, it's just entirely a financial decision. Do affiliated organisations have a vote in the Congress? No, they don't. Oh, this is a very nice comment. Thank you to Carol Ann. I'd just like to express appreciation for all involved in developing this restructure proposal. It sounds like a significant move towards sustainability. Thank you. Well, thank you, Carol Ann. Now, we're actually out of time, so there are more questions. I will work through them later, and I can certainly do follow-up emails, and everyone will get the PowerPoint on the email. We actually have a poll, and I'm not sure how this works because I haven't done it before, but I've just opened up the first poll question. This is just a straw poll. We'd be interested to hear what people think. The question for the first poll is, will the new structure being proposed for PACFA be better for members? Can people see the three options, yes, no, undecided? If you open up the little plus sign next to the polls and tick yes, no or undecided. Can you see that, Di?
No, I can't see it on mine. I think mine's a little different because I'm a panellist.
Okay. If people can see the poll, oh, hang on, I've got to click launch. There you go. Launch the poll. The poll's open.
Yeah.
So it would be great if people could tick yes, no or undecided. That's interesting. Some people are still undecided. You probably just need to learn more. Maybe when you see the long PowerPoint, that might help you.
And I think there are a couple more questions, Maria.
There are more questions, but I think we're nearly out of time.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the poll's still in progress. I'm going to close that one. I've closed that one. And then the next question, will the new structure being proposed for PACFA support the organisation to grow and better represent the profession? So I suppose this is about building our revenue base, but also I hope making psychotherapy much stronger within PACFA, making it clearer.
Being a stronger peak body.
Yeah, and just generally being a stronger peak body. Okay, poll in progress. That's fun, isn't it? Instant feedback. Thanks everyone for that. So I'd be really happy to receive emails, and so would Di. Di is the chair of the Restructure Working Party, and she is also the Vice President of PACFA. So she has been very active in this restructure process. We're very happy to receive any further comments or feedback via the email. It was interesting with the first poll question, quite a few people were still undecided. So if you're undecided, just drop us a line and tell us what it is that you still want to know more about. Is there some issues that you need clarified about how the structure will work? We're very happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, and we'd be really keen to hear from you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Maria, for running this webinar, your first time. And I think it's been good to just have a conversation about what we're doing. It's a bit interesting not to get immediate feedback from people, but as we're saying, if people would like to make further comments, questions via email, that would be great. And thanks to a large number of people who participated. Thanks for your contribution by joining in.
Thank you, everyone, and stay in contact. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone. Good night.